Mafia the Old Country is my first foray into the Mafia franchise. While I've been wanting to play the other games for a while, it took the early 20th century Sicilian setting to finally convince me to sit down with an entry. With that in mind, I don't bring any knowledge of the prior games to this review, nor can I say how the Old Country relates to those ones. However, that doesn't seem to matter, as while this is the fourth Mafia entry, it is the first chronologically. The plot itself works completely fine as a standalone game. Speaking of which, the story follows Enzo Favara, a young mine worker, or Caruso, a word you'll be hearing a lot throughout your playthrough, who dreams of bigger things. Very early on, he comes into conflict with the Sperado crime family, who brutally run the sulfur mines at which he works. After an incident with one of the higher-ups, Enzo flees the mine on a horse, reaching a barn, only to be quickly found by the pursuing Sperados. Just when he's on the cusp of being murdered by them, Don Teresi, head of another crime family, comes to his rescue. Warning the Sperados that they are on his territory, he saves Enzo and brings him into the fold. Without giving away too much, we then see Enzo rise through the ranks as he helps the family expand their business, at the same time having a potentially dangerous connection to the Don's daughter, and also having plenty of other conflict in his new crime-ridden life. While a lot of the classic gangster story beats are found here, I think that, at least in game form, the setting makes them feel fresh. It also helps that the cast and writers all do a solid job of making the story engaging and, ultimately, moving. A lot of the characters are more nuanced than they at first appear, and the dialogue is often snappy. It's a good thing the story is as enjoyable as it is, because Mafia the Old Country is a very story-driven game. A decent chunk of its length is spent on cutscenes, and even outside of those there are a lot of conversations between characters taking place during gameplay. This isn't a long game either, it will take about 10 to 15 hours to complete, and there is very little side content. Some people have taken issue with this, and while I understand that if you're looking at it from a point of view of wanting a lot of time for your money, I don't think a game's quality can be judged by its duration. And in many ways I think a game is a bigger rip-off if it's twice as long as it should be, and half that time you spend bored because it's just filler. I don't have a problem with Mafia's length, as I found it an ideal duration for telling its story, nor the fact that it has a lot of cutscenes, as I thought they were all well done. However, I do have some issues with its gameplay. In the first few chapters, we spend a lot of time walking around. There'll be a bit of a flare-up of action, but this usually doesn't last long before things slow down again. We can't really move about a lot in these early sections, and sometimes we're just waiting for the plot to progress so we can do something. I don't have too much of an issue with this early on, but I do think it's a bit of a problem when the game does it later in the story. We'll have exciting set pieces and fun gun battles, only to be slowed right back down again by sections where you're basically just moving the analog stick for your character to do a slow walk. There was one scene in particular where you're searching a police station and trying not to draw too much attention to yourself. While I understand from a realism point of view why the character wouldn't be running about in this location, I do think it would have been worth suspending your disbelief rather than having him slugging through the place. This is especially annoying when you want to explore the beautifully designed rooms on display, as well as look for the hidden chests, documents and treasures that you can find in the game. Other times it isn't as bad, because at least Mafia has an amazing atmosphere. While I may be forced to go slowly with a character through a village, at least I can enjoy the dialogue, and the world feels alive. It's stunning to look at, the noise is palpable, and there are lots of little details, whether it be NPCs interacting with each other, or just minding their own business, doing their own particular activity. However, on repeated playthroughs, I don't think this would be enough to stop these sections feeling like a bit of a drag. When Mafia does pick up speed, it's a lot of fun. The gameplay is a mix of riding horses, driving early cars, and both stealth and third-person shooter combat. The stealth is also sometimes optional, leaving a good deal of freedom on whether you want to go into a section guns blazing, or to try and sneak your way through it. While neither the stealth nor the third-person shooter elements are mind-blowing or original, they are both fun. The former allows you to throw coins and bottles for distractions, hide the bodies of those you've just killed, either with a knife or your hands, and to use the environment to stay hidden. The latter allows you to have two different guns, grenades and a knife, and largely sees you fighting hordes of enemies. You'll be crouching a lot behind things and having to think quick as enemies throw grenades, shoot you from various angles and rush up on you. While I wouldn't say I struggled with the game, on medium difficulty your health goes down somewhat quickly and it's fairly slow to use a healing item. This led my heart to pound several times as I saw an enemy running up to me when my health was low and I needed to reload. Both the shootouts and stealth sections are made more interesting by the fact they take place in a diverse array of locations. While the gameplay often stays similar, this helps it to feel a bit more fresh, especially towards the end of the game when there are some truly amazing areas and the weather changes as well, which serves as a nice reflection on what's going on in the story. As you go from location to location, you'll find yourself at first on horseback and then in early automobiles. This too helps mix up the gameplay. The cars you drive manage to be both a little stiff, as you'd expect from those early vehicles, and also very satisfying. There's a real weight to them. And going through the beautiful Sicilian scenery, whether it be in a car or on a horse, was always a great experience. Sometimes I just have to pause and soak up the terrain, the superb sound design adding greatly to this incredible atmosphere. Then you have the world building that's done both through the detailed locations and the various documents and newspapers you can find. As a history buff, I enjoyed seeing the way the rise of organised labour and the conflicts between it and employers were often discussed, as well as the Mafia's involvement in strike breaking and business activities. Newspapers often tell you about other things going on, not just in Sicily but in the world. Sporting events, Italy's occupation of Eritrea, new inventions, etc. All these and a lot more help this feel like a real world, as did the various documents you can pick up which expand on character motivations and tell us more of what's happened to those characters. There are a number of other collectibles too, as well as a money system that allows you to buy guns, suits, cars, horses, knives, but the problem I have with these is they feel a little half-baked. The game only allows you to explore outside of the mission objectives a few times, and there doesn't really feel like much of an incentive for doing it. As for money, you can pick up a bunch of different weapons from enemies anyway, and you use a few different cars. I don't really feel like the game gives you too much reason to want to buy these things. There being no side missions is a further reason you don't really need to do this. There are some other gameplay sections that add diversity to what's on display. A number of knife duels that take place are a fun change-up, but I do think your combatants are a bit too similar in their fighting style, leaving some of these to feel a bit repetitive. And while this is more of a nitpick, there are some smaller details I had problems with. I went off exploring at one point and was blocked off by invisible barriers. I understand the game doesn't want me to see certain areas, probably due to size limitations, but it felt a bit of a cheap way to do it. There were also other things like a character falling on top of another and going through them, so their bodies were basically connected like some weird monster from The Thing. There weren't loads of glitches like this, and none game-breaking, but a few things felt a bit clunky. Then you have stuff like grenades, which you can throw at an enemy's foot, and while they'll acknowledge it, they often won't make any attempt at all to move out of the way. Nor does the grenade have much of an impact on them. Of course, less injury detail from a grenade is hardly a deal breaker, but it is nice when those little things are paid more attention to. Overall, I thought Mafia the Old Country was a solid experience. While I'm not sure there's enough here to have me returning again and again, I'm glad I completed the game, and I think the world created here was so well done that I hope the studio, Hangar 13, get a chance to do more historical games. I think Italy itself throughout the 20th century still has a lot of potential, perhaps a game focusing on Italy during the 1970s, the Cold War backdrop mixed with domestic troubles, the CIA, far-right groups, the Catholic Church, and then putting the Mafia on top of all that. The opportunities are endless, but whatever Hangar 13 do next, I'll keep an eye out. For Mafia the Old Country, I'm feeling somewhere between a 7 and a 7.5 out of 10.